haunted by a sinister lawyer. A spine-chilling true story of a cursed millionaire's hidden offer. Darkness loomed over the small suburb, a ghostly vine that wrapped around Sarah Thompson's heart. She shuffled through a stack of bills at her tiny kitchen table, each envelope feeling heavier than the last, pressing down on her with an unsettling weight. The familiar sound of her children's laughter echoed from the backyard, but it felt distant like a fading memory. Fear surged through her veins, a relentless pulse reminding her of the imminent threat. Their home could slip away, and with it, their lives could shatter into a million pieces. Then came the invitation, shimmering like a mirage. The gala promised a night of elegance far removed from Sarah's bruised reality. The fine print hinted at charity, but a nagging whisper in her gut advised against it. "You need this," she murmured to herself, pressing her finger against the embossed lettering. As evening fell, the stars blinked down at her, falsely reassuring. Skewed thoughts spiraled through her. What was she walking into? Inside the mansion, grandeur enveloped her like a heavy cloak. Glistening chandeliers loomed like watchful eyes, and laughter rolled through the air. Yet it felt foreboding, almost sinister. Driven by desperation, she steeled herself, forcing a smile as she navigated through the throng of sharply dressed guests. But as she locked eyes with Charles Hargrove, the ostentatious lawyer behind the night, a chill raced down her spine. His smile seemed too wide, his gaze lingering a fraction too long, each laugh echoing with an eerie resonance. "Welcome, Miss Thompson," he uttered, his voice dripping with false warmth. The folks around them bubbled with idle chatter, their joviality masking the knife-dark tension that hung thick in the air. As she tried to engage in small talk, the shadows began to dance, whispering secrets that clawed at the edges of her mind. She glanced toward her neighbors, those once familiar faces now lined with something darker. Fear? Guilt? Their eyes darted away, tremors of anxiety rippling through her. Even when she caught family friends in corners, their smiles twisted into uneasy grimaces. What were they hiding? A cacophony echoed in her mind, muttering rumors of inheritance tied to a cursed legacy. Chills brushed against her skin, making her instincts scream for escape. But before she could retreat, Hargrove leaned in closer, eyebrows raised conspiratorially. "I can help you, you know. Just let me show you my offer." She recoiled inwardly, something primal warning her that kindness often wore the mask of cruelty. Before she could render any response, a sudden silence swept through the room, dangling like a thread ready to snap. Lights flickered ominously. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, momentarily twisting the opulent surroundings into a nightmarish landscape. Teeth clenched against her fears, she edged away but felt the mounting anxiety close in. The once electric energy felt suffocating, as if the building itself was holding its breath. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Just as she registered the dread coursing through the lavish hall, footsteps echoed uncomfortably close, a chilling figure emerging from the shadows. A breathless moment passed, then a voice slithered through the darkness. "You've chosen poorly." A knot tightened in Sarah's stomach as dread morphed into panic. She pivoted to flee, but the weight of the night bore down, leaving nowhere to run. This gathering, masquerading as charity, morphed into something grotesque and unimaginable. What had she stumbled into? A curse awaited her, and she could feel it creeping closer, dragging her deeper into its horrifying grip. How far would she have to dig to save her children from the dark? The air thickened, coiling like a serpent around Sarah, stealing her breath and heavying her limbs. The figure stepping from the shadows wore an expression that mingled dread and glee, as if he lived for the weight of fear he invoked. His presence suffocated, pressing against her reality until it felt as though the walls might collapse. "Who are you?" she whispered, forcing the words through trembling lips. He smirked, a twisted smile curling his lips. "Just a messenger, Miss Thompson. Consider me the first of many invitations." The guests around her had fallen into silence, their eyes glassy, fixated on the unfolding horror. She felt their stares piercing through her, accusing, judging. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. Each pulse a reminder of just how trapped she was. "Do you see them?" he asked, nodding toward the other partygoers. "They're part of a different game, a game you've unwittingly joined." Suddenly, laughter erupted from a corner of the room. But it wasn't the laughter of joy. It was jarring, filled with malice, slicing through the tension like a knife. Sarah cast a glance over her shoulder, recognizing a few familiar faces distorted by fear. A neighbor she once shared a cup of sugar with turned abruptly away, eyes wide with panic. "This isn't right," she muttered, a sense of urgency clawing at her. She spun toward Hargrove again, finding his gaze startlingly intense, like he could peel back her skin and read her fears. "What do you want from me?" He stepped closer, invading her space, and whispered conspiratorially, "Your acceptance. I can help you better than anyone you'll meet tonight. But first, you must understand what lies ahead." The shadows seemed to stretch with him, coiling like smoke from a dying flame. "People have tried to ignore the fate that has long been binding them, Miss Thompson. But nothing can escape the curse, even your little ones." A cold wave of terror washed over her at the mention of her children. "Leave them out of this," she snapped, feeling rage and panic intertwined deep in her gut. "Ah, but that's where you're wrong," he replied, feigning innocence. "They're already woven into the fabric of this night. Perhaps you'd be better off looking for a way out, before they become part of the game too." Suddenly, the lights flickered violently again. It felt no longer like a mere lighting glitch, but like a heartbeat pulsating, alive, connected to whatever dark energy lay unseen in the mansion. People began to murmur, some trying to leave, but the doors swung shut, an invisible grip holding them in place. "Look around," Hargrove taunted, as the atmosphere shifted from tense to charged. "Do you really think you can escape? You stepped into my world, you play by my rules. Now." He leaned in so close she could smell the bitterness on his breath. "Are you ready to accept what comes next?" Adrenaline surged through her, forcing her mind to race. Pieces started clicking. The gala was laced with desperation. Every guest perhaps one small misstep away from being caught in this labyrinth of dread. A curse, her curse. Accepting his offer would mean chaining herself to a fate darker than she could imagine. In that moment, determination ignited in her core. "No," she said, the word barely a murmur at first, but it grew stronger. She would fight, no matter the cost. But just as she thought of her escape, the room darkened again. Black shapes spiraled around them, a haunting swirl of regret and despair. Hargrove's laughter echoed, mingling with strange whispers that beckoned her deeper into the shadows, past the point of no return. "Don't resist, Sarah," he cooed as the suffocating darkness closed in. "You're only prolonging the inevitable with every ounce of willpower." She turned to sprint for the exit, but the dark tendrils gripped her tighter, pulling her back with an insidious force. "Your children," Hargrove's voice sliced through the buzz of chaos. "Where will they be when the night is over?" And just like that, everything spiraled. As the darkness consumed her, the last flicker of light snuffed out. What had she awakened? What would she become, once the night finally ended? The darkness enveloped her like a heavy quilt, smothering the remnants of light and sound. Panic clawed at her throat, each breath returning sharp and hollow. She fought against the encroaching shadows with everything in her, every instinct telling her to flee. But the darkness held her, an unseen hand gripping her waist, pulling her deeper into despair. The laughter of Hargrove blended into the whispers from the roiling shadow, indistinct and haunting. Each syllable crept under her skin like ice, feeding off her fear. She twisted her body, desperate for freedom, but all she could feel was emptiness and dread tightening around her chest. "Sarah," the voice was soft, almost sweet, layered with a deception that chilled her to the bone. "You have to understand. This night is only the beginning." Visions of her children flashed before her eyes. Their laughter, their tiny hands reaching for her, the innocent smiles that made her heart swell. The thought of them being entwined in this wretched game burned her with anguish. "Let them go," she screamed into the suffocating darkness. But her voice felt swallowed whole, leaving behind silence. A sudden light broke through the murk, a flicker, tantalizingly close. She pushed against the binding shadows, her heart racing as she darted towards it. Each step was slow, like moving through treacle. Just as she reached for the brightness, it flickered, turning into a sickly amber glow. In front of her stood an archway, framed in sickly yellow light. And beyond it, chaos erupted. Shadows of the party guests twisted and warped, caught in a looping nightmare outside the threshold. A blood-curdling scream pierced the air, sending chills skittering down her spine. "Join us, Sarah," Hargrove's south voice reverberated close, dripping with sinister amusement. "You think you can fight fate? You're already part of this tapestry." Feeling the tendrils slacken for a moment, she burst through the archway into the dimly lit hallway. The air carried a charred scent, mingling with something sweet and putrid. The walls of the mansion seemed to pulse, breathing in tandem with her racing heart, the floorboards squeaking beneath her weight. She stumbled forward, needing to find a way out, some escape from Hargrove's malevolence, each step driven by thoughts of her children. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with portraits whose eyes followed her, expressions contorting into grotesque grins that mocked her fear. Suddenly, whispers erupted from the darkness again. "Run, Sarah." They surged forward and clutched her like claws, unnerving and frantic. "They want you to fail. You cannot trust anyone." Her breath grew shallow, desperation winding tighter around her throat. She could feel the pulse of the house. It was alive, breathing, and conspiring against her. Somewhere behind her, Hargrove's laughter echoed, rich and chilling, sending the icy fingers of dread creeping back into her veins. Stumbling, she rounded a corner, half expecting to see her escape before her, but instead encountered a door. It was a grand affair, ornate against the backdrop of decay, its surfaces polished to a sheen but cracked and stained with age. With trembling hands, she gripped the cold handle, surging with urgency. But as she turned it, panic cut anew through her veins. The door barely budged, a force rippling from the other side resisting her every effort. "No. Let me out," she cried, slamming her shoulder against the wood, desperation fueling her. Just then, echoes of laughter filled the corridor around her, mocking, delighting in her struggles. "This is just the beginning, Sarah," Hargrove cooed from the unseen shadows. "You'll understand soon enough that escape is merely a myth." With one last push, adrenaline coursing through her veins, the door gave way, and she fell sprawling onto the floor of another room. In that moment, as she gasped for breath, something deeper within her stirred. She realized the darkness wasn't just outside. It trickled inside, wending its way into her resolve. Taking a deep breath, she rose slowly, determination hardening her expression. But what awaited her in this new chamber? The unknown loomed larger, pulling her toward a truth she could not yet fathom. And as the door slammed shut behind her, the question remained. Would the secrets of this cursed night lead to salvation or damnation? The room was saturated in an unsettling stillness, heavy with the stench of mold and decay. Shadows danced in the corners, twisting with a life of their own. As Sarah regained her footing, the cool hardwood beneath her felt alive, pulsing with an unseen heartbeat, throbbing against her skin. She steadied her breath, each inhalation a battle against the anxiety bubbling in her chest. "Focus," she whispered to herself, but the words felt hollow. Each heartbeat drummed a reminder of her purpose. She had to find her children. They depended on her, their innocent smiles a beacon amid the darkness. Moving cautiously, she scanned the room. Heavy drapes, tattered and stained, blocked any further light. The only source was the dim glow of a rickety chandelier overhead, its flickering bulbs casting a ghostly pallor around the space. Suddenly, a creak echoed from behind her. Sarah spun around, eyes wide. The door she had just come through now stood ajar, swaying ever so slightly. The inviting crack of darkness beckoned her again, a siren-esque call promising to draw her back into the familiar terror of Hargrove. "No." The word escaped her lips like a prayer, a fleeting reassurance that propelled her deeper into the room. Ahead, an ornate mirror loomed against the wall, its surface clouded, reflecting fragmented images. Was it a reflection of her own face, or something else? She stepped closer, the floor groaning beneath her weight, and as she did, the air grew thick with an electric tension. Shadows bent unnaturally at the edges of the glass, swirling like smoke. For a heart-stopping moment, it felt as if something in the mirror was watching her, its gaze hungry and feral. Without thinking, she reached out to touch the glass, but as her fingers grazed the cold surface, a vision flooded her mind. Images not of her children, but of Hargrove, standing over her, a sinister grin stretching across his face. "You are caught in my game now, Sarah," his voice echoed in her head, a sickly sweet taunt. She recoiled, dropping her hand as a scream twisted in her throat. What game? Questions spun wildly in her mind, tangling with fragments of her memories. The laughter, the whispers, the overwhelming dread. It was all a part of something larger, something she had yet to uncover. "Sarah," the voice called again, more insistent this time, resonating from behind a heavy curtain in the corner of the room. "Come closer." Against her better judgment she approached. The fabric seemed to tremble as she pulled it back. What lay beyond sent chills racing across her skin. The room behind the curtain was a hidden chamber, filled with scattered remnants of lives long past. Dusty toys, an old rocking chair swaying softly, and a children's drawing hung askew on the wall. But it was the far corner that captured her attention, a dark, gaping hole, like the mouth of despair inviting her in. "Sarah," the voice murmured again, now tangled with the cries of children, each sound sharper than the last. They called to her, desperate and forlorn. Her heart twisted painfully. She had to go deeper. With a deep breath, she edged closer to the abyss. The sounds escalated, overlapping, every cry pulling her in. The weight of her choices pressed upon her like a physical force. Could she truly confront whatever lay within? And as she hovered on the edge, uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. Would she find her children's salvation, or only more darkness? Deeper than she could imagine? With her courage swirling and the echoes of her children screaming in her ears, she took a step forward, plunging into the unknown. What awaited her in that suffocating blackness? A truth so horrifying it could shatter her spirit? The darkness consumed her as she stepped into the void, swallowing her whole. The cries of her children surged and fell like waves crashing against her resolve. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out any thoughts of retreat. The air felt thicker, colder, as if she had stepped into a different realm, a place where time and reality twisted like the shadows in the corners of the rooms above. For a moment she couldn't see. No light, no shapes, just an endless black. Panic surged through her veins, cold and sharp. "Come closer." The voice taunted again, now clearer, wrapping around her like a vine, squeezing tighter. "Mommy, help us." It was their voices, mingled with the haunting sound of laughter that made her skin crawl. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a wild drum. Taking a breath filled with dread, she forced herself to move deeper into the cavernous space. She reached out with trembling hands, her fingertips skimming along the damp, uneven walls. The cold stone sent a jolt of fear through her, gripping her stomach in a vice. Something whispered enticingly from the abyss, urging her forward. As she walked, the air hummed with unseen energy, vibrating against her skin. Intense shadows darted out of the corner of her eye, but each time she looked, there was nothing, only the dark laughing at her fear. A distant flicker caught her attention, one that pulsed like a living heartbeat. "Sarah," the whisper transitioned into a hiss. The last syllable elongated in a way that caused goosebumps to rise along her arms. Her pulse quickened, and her breath came in ragged gasps. "Find us, we're waiting." Her heart threatened to burst as adrenaline flooded her system. She picked up the pace, unwilling to sink into despair, pressing further into the suffocating dark. Suddenly she stumbled, her foot catching on something solid. Panic washed over her as she hit the ground, her palms slapping against the cold, damp earth. But as she pushed herself back up, she froze. Her eyes fell on what she had tripped over, a small, old toy, its surface coated in a thick layer of grime. It was a doll, one her children used to play with, its one eye missing and its smile faded into something eerie. A chilling realization pierced her. This was proof they were here. "Mummy." The cry reverberated around her, sharper this time, filling her with terror. "Mommy, please." It was so close, so real. "Where are you?" she shouted, desperation tearing through her voice. "I'm coming." The shadows stirred, swirling with a renewed urgency. As if responding to her, the surrounding darkness began to fragment. Shapes formed, hazy figures of children peeking out from the dark, their faces twisted in anguish. "Help us." They echoed in unison, their limbs reaching out, hands covered in something dark and slick. Sarah's breath hitched. Could it be? They were so close, but just as she thought this, an impossibly cold gust of wind swept through, snuffing out the light of hope in her heart. The figures began to warp, their voices merging into a cacophony of cries filled with fear. "Mommy." The words morphed into something darker, sharp laughter slicing through their cries. The shadows shifted again. A figure emerging from the depths, cloaked in darkness, a towering silhouette with a familiar sinister aura. "No," she gasped, recognizing that wretched smile. "Hargrove." "Welcome to my domain, Sarah," he mocked, his tone dripping with malice. Her blood turned to ice. How had he followed her here? With a surge of dread, she stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror. She was trapped, against the wall of despair. Struggling, she turned to run, but the shadows lunged at her, attempting to snatch her back. With the sounds of her children calling mingling with the evil laughter echoing in her ears, Sarah realized she was on the edge of total darkness. Did she dare face Hargrove, or flee into the consuming shadows? As the darkness pulled her into its depths, her last thought flickered with desperate hope. Could she save her children, or would she disappear forever? Terror ignited within her as Sarah's heart pounded like a war drum against her chest. She felt the icy grip of despair tighten around her throat. Hargrove's presence loomed large, a dark cloud filtering what little light remained. The children's cries filled her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like barbed wire. "Stay back," she yelled, her voice barely a whisper against the overwhelming silence of the void. The shadows curled and twisted, teasing her senses as they morphed into phantoms of fear. Hargrove stepped closer, his features becoming clearer against the suffocating darkness. His eyes glinted with malevolence, a chilling reminder of the man who tore her life apart. "You have entered a world of your own making, Sarah. You wanted to see them again, and here they are lost, just like you." The weight of his words hit her harder than any physical blow. "No," she screamed and turned to flee, her breath coming in frantic gasps as she sprinted back into the endless black. The walls seemed to close in, pulsating with malevolent energy, swallowing the hope of escape. Before her, a flickering light appeared, dancing like a trapped firefly amid the black. The familiar sound of her children calling drove her forward, her legs fueled by desperation. "I'm coming. Don't give up." But as she ran, the shadows converged, swirling around her like a storm. They clawed at her, icy fingers brushing against her skin, drinking in her fear. One of the figures lunged out, its form shifting into her daughter's face, wide-eyed and ghostly pale. "Mommy," the specter whispered, lips curling into a haunting smile. "Why did you leave us?" "No," Sarah shouted, reeling back. "You're not real." "Oh, but we are," it replied, its tone sultry and sad. "You let us go." A cold dread washed over Sarah. Hargrove's words echoed in her mind. The darkness drew strength from her guilt. She spun around, desperate to escape the wretched sight, only to find Hargrove blocking her way, laughter dripping from his lips like a poisonous potion. "Time to face your past, Sarah," he said, his voice curling through the air, sinister and taunting. "They're waiting for you. And so am I." She turned again, sensing the walls closing in tighter, the air too thick to breathe. She searched frantically for an opening, but all she felt were the sharp edges of despair. Just as the weight threatened to crush her, her ears pricked at another sound, an echo of laughter. Familiar laughter. Her heart lurched. Was it them? "Mommy, please." Before she could process it, the echoes of her past danced violently around her. The laughter morphed into cries, the cries into whispering voices that swirled and echoed, overlapping, drowning her heart in sorrow. "What have you done?" she whispered, eyes darting as panic surged anew. The shadows shivered and shifted, a cacophony of grief swirling in the very air. "Join us, Sarah," the chorus of children beckoned. "Stay with us forever." "No." She shot back towards Hargrove, anger igniting her fear. "I won't let you take them." He grinned wider, revealing jagged teeth that glinted like daggers in the dark. "You think you can win? There's no escape here. You belong to the dark now." As Sarah backed away, the flickering light she had seen before dimmed, dwindling into nothingness. Shadows crashed together in a deafening vortex, and she could feel their presence surrounding her, wrapping tighter and tighter with every heartbeat. And then they fell silent. For a moment, There was a dread-filled stillness, one that made her skin crawl. The darkness pulsed, thick and alive, waiting, watching. Sarah Hargrove's voice rolled through the dark like thunder. You can be with them forever. Just surrender. Deep down, her instinct screamed at her to run, but the shadows whispered sweet promises of safety. Just then, an unexpected memory seized her children's laughter around a sunlit living room. Warm smiles and boundless love. No, she screamed, and with a surge of willpower, she lunged toward the retreating light crystallizing at the edge of her vision. Would she break free from the grip of despair, or would Hargrove's malevolence swallow her whole? The shadows quaked in rage, reaching for her desperately as she hurtled toward her last chance of escape. Sarah felt the cold touch of despair wash over her as she hurtled toward the flickering light. The shadows surged forward, angry wraiths grasping at her ankles, pulling her back into their suffocating embrace. She could hear Hargrove's laughter echoing in her ears, a mad melody that thrummed against her temples like a ritual chant. Using every ounce of strength, she pressed on. The light grew more distinct, a beacon promising refuge. She could almost feel her children waiting just beyond its reach, their arms outstretched. "Mommy," they called, their voices threading through the darkness, rich with love yet tinged with the sorrow of their absence. "Hold on. I'm coming." With that surge of purpose, she barreled through the waning shadows. The walls thrashed, constricting and expanding as if the void itself were alive, desperate to reclaim her. But as she approached the light, dread wove through her heart. What if it was a cruel trick? What if Hargrove and the shadows were simply waiting to engulf her again? She lunged right into the glare, expecting warmth, expecting the touch of her children. But as she crashed against the light, it blazed with an intensity that seared her skin. It blared like an alarm, drowning out the whispers of the shadows just behind her. And then, everything faded into a blinding white. When her eyes cleared, Sarah found herself standing in an empty room, its walls painted a sterile white devoid of any shadows. She wobbled, feeling both elated and terrified. "Where am I?" Her voice echoed, empty. No answer. No laughter. Just silence stretching like an endless void. Panic spiked. It clawed inside her, relentless. Suddenly, Hargrove appeared in the corner of her eye, leaning casually against a wall, a dark figure against the stark brightness. "Did you really think you could escape?" His voice flowed with an oily satisfaction. "You've only just begun to confront the truth." "Truth?" she spat, anger igniting. "What truth? You think you can play with my mind?" He straightened up, a predatory smile unfurling across his face. "Your children are here, Sarah. They are part of this realm now. You cannot change what has been done." "No," she screamed, clenching her fists. "I won't believe you. You're a monster." But you're part of the monster too. Aren't you? You created me the moment you wished for this. You brought yourself here. Remember that when you find yourself in darkness again." The walls started to ripple like a disturbing mirage, an endless loop of hall of mirrors. Each reflection distorted her face, her children's faces, their laughter silenced by the oppressive horror surrounding her. Each echo felt like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. "Sarah," he said softly, almost tenderly, "you cannot run forever. The deeper you dig, the more you'll unearth. What you want is buried beneath regret." "No. Stop." She could feel the ground shatter beneath her as the room contracted. Her breathing turned erratic, each inhale painfully sharp. "Please." But Hargrove only chuckled, a dark symphony of delight. "You've already started your journey to find them, Sarah. The only way to return to them is to embrace the darkness, and accept your part in this." As his words sank in, the room twisted violently, shadows stretching from the walls like skeletal hands reaching for her. She turned to flee again, but the exit seemed further away than ever. Just then, a fragment of a memory broke through the last day she had with them, their smiles, her promises she couldn't keep. In that moment, an idea blossomed. Perhaps if she confronted the truth he was mocking, if she unwrapped the layers of her own guilt, she would find a way out. What if facing the darkness was the key? "Fine," she shouted into the ether. "I'll face it. I'll confront my past." Hargrove's expression morphed from smug satisfaction to curiosity. "Are you sure you want that, Sarah? There's no turning back." With a sudden lurch, the walls shattered. She was pulled into a swirling vortex of memories swirling around her. Each scene a painful reminder, but she felt a flicker of hope within. The chaos. As the memories crashed, blending with the shadows, she yelled out, "I want my children back." And with that desire, the darkness pulsed around her, thicker and more ominous, as something began to stir within it. Would she discover the truth she sought, or would it engulf her entirely? The shadows crept closer, and Hargrove's laughter echoed again. "Let us see how deep your darkness really goes." Sarah was drawn into a whirlwind of broken images, each memory twisted by time like the gnarled roots of an ancient tree. She could feel them pressing against her, desperate, suffocating. A child's laughter rang out. "Mommy!" It dug into her chest, pulling her deeper into the chaos. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a terrified bird caught in a net. Shadows tightened around her like a noose. Hargrove's voice echoed from the corners of her mind, ricocheting off her thoughts. "You wanted freedom, but freedom comes at a price, doesn't it?" Images danced in and out. Her son's birthday party, balloons floating amidst the sunlight, the smell of cake wafting through the air. And then the memory twisted. The cake smeared across his face. Laughter turned to panic, and then silence. "Mommy." The call was desperate now. Pleading. A cold spike of guilt twisted in her gut. "I was there. But the memory crushed under the weight of despair. She could only see their faces as they turned away. Shadows of disappointment looming large. Her children had left, and it was her fault. She bit her lip so hard it bled, grounding herself amidst the swirling chaos. "No. I didn't mean to," she shouted, her voice lost in the engulfing void. "Didn't you?" Hargrove's voice slithered around her like smoke, pouring into her ears. "You buried them, Sarah. You chose ambition over love." His laughter snarled in the air. Darkness wrapped around her, curling against her skin like a snake, squeezing tighter. "Face the truth," he called. "Face the monster you've become." Each memory slammed into her, relentless, merciless. A fleeting vision of her daughter's first steps. A joyous moment now suffocated by echoes of regret. The image cracked like glass before shattering her daughter, no longer following, but instead fading into the ether. "Please," she begged, frantic. "Don't take them from me." But the memories were an avalanche, and the shadows swirled, pulling her downward, deeper into the unknown. Each haunting remembrance clawed at her heart, revealing her failures with surgical precision. She watched herself make choices that severed the bonds, choices that fractured her family. No, she felt her breath quickening. "I can't hold on much longer." With each breath, tendrils of darkness reached for her, and with each gasp, the memories became sharper, more brutal. She clawed at the air, desperately wishing for relief, but the vortex only drew her in closer. "Embrace it. Embrace who you are," Hargrove taunted. "A caged bird is what you wished for. How deliciously ironic that you're now trapped by your own making." "Shut up," she screamed, her voice cracking. In that moment of desperation, a spark ignited within her, an inkling of resolve. Perhaps the darkness would reveal more. Perhaps the monster inside was not just her guilt, but something else, something she could manipulate. "Yes, I see now," she murmured, breath trembling. "To confront darkness, I must become it. I must harness my regret." Just then, a new shift rippled through the shadows. They recoiled, momentarily stunned by her realization. Something glinted through the haze, a thread of light that promised not just escape but empowerment. But it flickered, dimming as quickly as it flared. Hargrove stopped, his cocky facade slipping. "Trying to claim dominion over the dark? Good luck, Sarah. You'll find it slippery. It'll twist you apart." "Let it try," she said, newfound steel racing through her veins. "I'll turn this darkness into strength." The shadows buzzed around her like angry bees, thickening, constricting, ready to consume. She fought against the pull, feeling the true weight of her choices settle into her bones. Sarah drew in a shuddering breath, prepared to plunge deeper into the chaos, determined to wrest what she could from the hell Hargrove had crafted. The light was there, dim but alive, urging her forward. Hargrove sneered, "We'll see just how strong you really are. But remember, the darkness feeds on fear." "Then I won't fear it," she shouted back. And then, as if responding to her defiance, the darkness roared around her, throwing her further into the shadows. As she fell deeper, a chilling premonition tickled at the edges of her mind, voices whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. Now, let us uncover the truth behind your legacy. What truth awaited her beyond those shadows? Would she uncover a way to rescue her children? Or would the shadows consume her hope entirely? The shadows twisted, contorting into sinister shapes as Sarah spiraled deeper into the abyss. It felt infinite, as if she was falling through her own mind, spiraling through the corridors of regret. Each heartbeat echoed like a war drum, intensifying the chaos, amplifying her fear. Do you see them? Hargrove's voice echoed cruelly through the void, a smirk lacing his tone. Just a blink away, and yet bound by your choices. Your children await your return. But you must confront what you've buried first. Stop it, she gasped, but the darkness thickened, swirling like a tempest. Memories clawed at her, each one punctuated with agony. A hand reaching out, desperately grasping for hers, vanished into nothing. The coldness seeped into her bones. She'd been so focused on her career, blinded by ambition, that she'd let them slip away. She could almost feel their warmth, their innocence fluttering just outside her reach. Acceptance is the key, Sarah, Hargrove hissed. Embrace your failures. They are the very essence of you now. Sarah clutched her head, fighting against the cascade of torment. I don't want this. I don't want to be this monster. Laughter erupted around her, mocking, echoing endlessly through the darkness. Then fight it. But I assure you it won't let go easily. You'll need to dig deeper. Around her the memories shifted. They morphed and reformed until she was standing in her old living room, the sun streaming brightly through the windows. Her daughter's favorite dolls lay scattered on the floor, a painting half finished on the table. Laughter danced around her, echoing happiness that twisted into cruel shrieks. Mommy, don't leave. The small girl, eyes wide with fear, reached for her. No. No, Sarah cried, lunging forward, but the room dissolved into shadows once more, swallowed by their hunger. Why did you leave? Hargrove's voice dripped with malice. Why abandon them for your own gain? I had to. I thought I could fix everything. She sobbed, the guilt clawing at her heart like a wild animal. I thought I could make it all better. Yet here you are, lost, scared, and alone, he hissed, and the shadows surged forward like a tidal wave. Sarah's breath quickened, each intake a desperate plea for clarity. She felt the dark press against her, suffocating, but her determination flickered. What if this monster could be tamed? What if her regret could fuel her resolve? Enough, she shouted suddenly, forcing her voice to pierce through the cacophony. I will confront this. The moment those words left her lips, the shadows halted. A hush settled across the void, thick with anticipation. In that silence, a glimmer of insight surged to life within her. She dug deep within herself, finding strength she didn't know existed. To heal, I must accept my choices. To reclaim my family, I must own my past. Hargrove's voice slipped back into taunts. Delusional. You think strength comes from acceptance? Weakness breeds that too. But Sarah felt fire assemble in her chest. The darkness seemed to tremble at her newfound conviction. I'll prove you wrong. Panting, she felt the memories circling like birds of prey, awaiting her next move. What could she salvage from this mess? What could she twist to her advantage? She took a breath, steadying herself. Show me, she commanded, her heart thundering in her ears. Show me what I need to see. As if answering her call, the shadows rippled, colors sparking and fading like a broken television signal. The memories shifted, revealing not just her failures, but also the dark turns her ambition had taken. The deals made in secret, the lies that paved her path. Would she find the redemption she so desperately sought? Or would the truth spiral even further into despair? Prepare yourself, Sarah, Hargrove murmured, lurking just out of reach, his shadowy figure rippling against the backdrop of chaos. The past informs the future, and what you uncover may be more than you can bear. What awaited her as the truth unfolded? Would she embrace the darkness or be consumed by it entirely? The weight of the shadows pressed heavily against Sarah as she steeled herself for the truth. Each gust of cold air felt like fingers sliding against her skin, reminding her of the stakes. With renewed determination, she pushed deeper into the shifting memories, determined to uncover the hidden layers of her life that had tangled her in this cursed game. Bright flashes erupted around her. Scenes from her children's lives played out like a reel. Birthdays filled with laughter, quiet evenings spent reading stories, their tiny hands reaching for her, full of innocence and love. And then, shadows cloaked those memories, altering them into what-ifs, regrets, and the hollow sound of silence where joy once thrived. "Why did you choose ambition over us?" A whisper echoed in the confines of her mind. It was her daughter's voice, tinged with hurt and betrayal, wrapping around Sarah's heart like a vice. Panic clawed at her throat, but with it came an insatiable urge to confront the source of her pain. "You think you can change the past?" Hargrove's laughter mingled with the shadows, a chilling reminder of the power he wielded. But with each taunt, she felt the flicker of hope surge brighter within her. She needed to face the darkness, not fight it, but understand it. "Give me the strength to face my fears," she whispered, almost as a prayer. The shadows responded, swirling around her feet, beckoning her to confront the painful realities she had buried. One by one, memories surged forth in frenetic flashes. She was reminded of her hectic work schedule, the late nights that stretched into dawn, the phone calls missed when her children needed her most. "I thought I was doing this for you," she murmured, tears streaming down her cheeks. And then came the moment that had haunted her the day she had promised to pick them up from school, only to be delayed by a crucial meeting. Their little faces, crestfallen and alone, lingered in her nightmares. Sarah Hargrove cooed, his voice a persistent ache in her mind. "The monster you've become is forged from those choices. You can't escape it." In that moment, clarity broke through the darkness. "You're right," she screamed into the swirling void. "But I've come to reclaim my power, to make amends. I will own my mistakes, face my guilt, and fight for my children." The shadows recoiled, almost as if Hargrove's grip weakened in light of her conviction. "You think strength is born from admitting weakness? You couldn't be more mistaken." The laughter faded slightly, replaced by confusion as the fabric of his control began to fray. "Strength isn't just power, it's vulnerability, acceptance, and the courage to grow. I may have made mistakes, but I refuse to let them define me." Each word echoed through the darkness, rippling like a stone cast into still water. The memories morphed again, this time showing her the power of forgiveness, the hugs after arguments, small acts of kindness forgotten amidst the noise. They were moments that proved love endured even in the face of pain. The shadows trembled, the overwhelming presence of Hargrove faltered. "You think you can unearth this darkness? You're still lost in your regret." "No, I'm found," she replied, feeling the chains of her past dissolving as clarity and warmth enveloped her. "I'm not just a mother bound by guilt. I'm a survivor who wants to fight for her children. You can't have them." A flash of light erupted from within her, scattering the shadows like roaches retreating from the dawn. "I won't let your darkness swallow me or my family." She felt an energy pulse in her core, a force born of determination. As she stepped forward with clarity and intent, she would navigate through this darkness. Hargrove's form wavered, his laughter growing frantic. "Don't think this is the end. You cannot destroy what's intertwined with fate. Watch me." Sarah shot back as she embraced the light growing within her. In that moment, shapes of shadow detached from the walls, swirling into a tempest, but she knew she had the strength to face them. The light intensified, and as the vibrating energy surged around her, she envisioning her children smiling, laughing, free. With all her will, she reached for the light, her hands grasping for the warmth of her love that interwove through the darkness. Sarah saw a door, a portal shimmering just beyond the chaos. "I'm coming," she shouted, charging ahead, no longer confined by fear or regret. As she leaped toward the door, it exploded with brilliance. The shadows collapsed under their own weight, the energy of her love consuming them like fire. The darkness shrieked and dissipated, and with it, Hargrove's sinister laughter faded into the void. And just like that, she rushed through the door. The moment she crossed the threshold, she found herself alive with brilliant sunlight. The empty room transformed into her home, sunlight bathing the walls, laughter drifting in from the backyard where her children played. "Mommy." Their cries of joy rang down the hallway like music, drawing her in. Tears of relief spilled down her cheeks as she felt their warmth envelop her. Sarah collapsed onto her knees, arms sprawled wide as her children rushed into her embrace. "I thought I lost you," she sobbed, clutching them closer. "We're home, Mommy," they squealed. And in that embrace, everything she endured flickered behind her, finally stilled. In her heart, she carried the memories of the darkness, but held tightly to the light of love and hope. She was a survivor. The journey might not be over, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead, for it was with her children that she found her strength. As they laughed and played, Sarah promised herself she wouldn't let ambition blind her again. From now on, family would come first, and love would guide her path. And as she breathed deeply, a new dawn rose before them, filled with endless possibilities. Don't forget, now is the time to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this wild ride. This is your moment. Don't wait even one more second to share.